Bull, tell us about MenuRx, and we'll get to our next topic here.
Dr. Jake May and his team at MenuRx, they're studying nutrition. That's what they do for a living. It's not some idiot on the internet who, had his own plan for himself that maybe worked, maybe didn't, and now he's conning you to follow him on Instagram or TikTok, and he's convinced you and the other idiots that he's, an authority on weight loss or an authority on nutrition or body chemistry. I actually have real experts for you, scientists, doctors, nutritionists. They study this for a living. How about that? Science, real things, facts. Dr. Jake May and his team do a great job, whether it's to help you lose weight, get in better shape, tighten up your abs or whatever, or just find the food that will fuel your body properly. Metabolic testing, and a lot of what they do is covered by health insurance. In fact, Jake was in town a couple of weeks ago. He's from Cleveland originally, and he was in town to kind of talk with trainers in the area and some of the insurance companies in the area. And now most insurance companies in Ohio will cover MenuRx on your health insurance plan.
Nice.
HSA and FSA spending accounts as well you can use to pay for the treatments. Well, not treatments, but the plan. So go to menu-rx.com today. Sign up with any of their plans. Get a 1-year membership to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show absolutely free. That's menu-rx.com.
Thanks for that, Bull. The NBA Finals Game 6 could be the last NBA game of the season, is set for tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And I've had a complete change of stance watching this series on something that is related to the Cavs. I'm going to ask you guys a question first to then get to the final point. And, Jason, I'll start with you as my partner on the Ultimate Cavs Show. In today's day and age of the NBA, can you pay a non-offensive creator $20 million or more?
Hang on. Why don't you go first on this?
Fine.
Yeah,
I will go first.
Because I was actually I meant to do this before the show, and I just looked it up now on where Jarrett ranks. So you tell me.
Jarrett ranks in terms of what?
Salary in the NBA.
Where does he rank?
I'll tell you when I want to hear his.
Tell us later. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Jarrett's set to make $20 million this year.
Yeah.
$30 million each of the next 3 years after this. I don't think there is a cookie-cutter version of you need to build a team in this mode to win a championship. We're about to see the 7th different champion in 7 years. Parity has never been bigger than it is in the NBA right now, and each team has been built in different ways. However, the most common similarity between those last 7 and between a lot of the teams that have had success, not necessarily championships, but have had a lot of success over the last couple of years, is that at any given point, the 5 guys they have out on the court can create offense. And you've seen in this finals, Isaiah Hartenstein, who the Thunder paid $30 million this offseason, has seen his minutes cut drastically because he's been the point of attack of Indiana's offense, and he brings not a lot from the other end of the court in terms of his ability to create offensively. Miles Turner has been played off the court in this series, dominated earlier in the playoffs, was great against the Knicks, was great against the Cavs, has not closed the majority of games in favor of Obi Toppin because OKC was attacking him, and he was unable to create offense. The best teams in basketball right now.
Let me ask you a question, Mike.
Yes.
When you say they were attacking, you say Miles Turner is not good defensively?
He's a good shot blocker.
Yeah.
He's not good on the perimeter. So they're trying to create these switches to where he's trying to guard SGA
They were
on the
attacking
perimeter.
him, in other words, by getting him, forcing him out into
forcing him
the
out of the
basket.
paint,
Away
bringing
from
him
the
out.
basket.
Correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
Which is what happens all the time. People attack.
Gotcha.
But it's not just
And they were doing the same thing with Hartenstein.
exact same thing. And they're doing it against Chet Holmgren. However,
Right.
the difference between Chet Holmgren and the other two is Holmgren could create offense for himself.
Okay.
The best teams, not just this series, in this season, the best lineups, the best teams over the last couple of years, have had 5 guys on the court that can initiate offense. So if you try and shade your defense to force the ball out of player X's hands, you have 4 other guys capable of initiating offense. And I think when you look at the second apron, the hard cap, all these financial decisions that you're going to have to make to put a proper team together, I don't think paying a non-initiator is worth $20 or more million.
Okay.
And I go back to Rudy Gobert as the prime example because Rudy Gobert gives you nothing on offense, is an elite rim protector, is a great screener, but has been year after year after year played off the court in the playoffs because you essentially play 4-on-5 when he's on the court. They just refuse to guard him.
Right.
Jarrett Allen brings you more offensively than a Rudy Gobert. He's not the same level of defensive player, not the same level of rebounder as Rudy Gobert. But I think in today's day and age of this free-flowing offense where you need to be able to score down the stretch from different guys because defenses tighten up so much, and I know, well, you said you haven't watched a ton of the finals. I would recommend watching some of these fourth quarters. They've been incredible
Phenomenal.
in OKC's defense.
It's been a phenomenal series.
In the fourth quarter has been just magnificent. They know Halliburton wants to do X. They are taking it away, and Indiana doesn't have enough creators to then force OKC's defense to suffer for shading so heavily in that direction. I don't think it is a smart roster-building strategy right now to invest that kind of money in a player that can't initiate offense. And I say that to bring it back to the Cavs. I was on the whole boat of, if you're going to break it up, Jarrett Allen's the first guy to go, but if it's not the right deal, okay, I understand. I think I've changed to, I don't think Jarrett Allen can be part of a championship construction of a team, not because of anything Jarrett Allen doesn't do, or not because of what he does do.
Yes, it is because of something he doesn't do.
It's not because of what he does do. He is valuable. He's worth $20 million in a vacuum, but the Cavs need other guys who can initiate offense, and that $20 million can be spent better elsewhere, in my opinion.
But, Mike, I would argue that he's not valuable. You're saying he can't be on a winning team. So why would any team want him?
Because you still need a center at some point.
Why? You just said you can't win that way in the playoffs.
I don't think you can close that way in the playoffs.
This is a it's a very nuanced argument.
Okay.
I think.
Let me just ask him one more thing.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying makes sense? Do you guys?
I get what you're saying, but I want a little more clarification. So if Donovan Mitchell is 1 through 10 scales, Donovan Mitchell in terms of being a creator is a 10, right?
Yeah.
Jarrett Allen's a 1?
It's like a 2.
Or whatever.
1, 2,
I guess it doesn't matter, 1 or 2. What is Darius Garland a 10? Is he a 9? Like what is he?
He's an 8-9.
What's DeAndre Hunter on that scale?
6, 7.
5, 6, 7, somewhere in that range.
All right, so let's say 6. That's kind of in the middle of what you guys are saying. What's Evan Mobley?
6, 7.
What number do you have to be above to be a player who could be in the closing group?
I'll go Obi Toppin because the Pacers are closing games with Obi Toppin now instead of Miles Turner.
Right. What's he?
I think he's a 5. I think you got to be at least a semblance of a creator, a guy that you cannot leave because if the defense leaves you, you can make them pay. I don't think, and Jared plays around the basket, he's not on the perimeter, so it is slightly, it's not exactly apples to apples, but I think you have to have some semblance of the ability to initiate offense to be part of a championship closing lineup. And I don't think Jarrett Allen has that in him.
So, in other words, if you had a team that...
Which, by the way, goes back to my whole big picture of the Cavs' best closing lineup is Evan at the 5 with 4 other shot makers around him.
Right. Would you rather have a team with 5 7s or 4 8 through 10s and one guy that's 1 or 2? Is that too complicated?
I would take 4 8 through 10s.
Did I go too extreme on that?
I think it's too extreme,
I can't follow it.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is...
talking about girls?
Ultimately...
But it's like, go back to Gobert.
How many
Gobert's won Defensive Player of the Years and elite
Right, but
rebounder.
you're saying he's basically useless when it matters.
Yeah. Gobert's
so
basically useless when it
every
matters.
player in the NBA... Who's the best player in the NBA that can't create his own offense, really? Who's below a 5? Best player in the NBA who's below a 5. Is it Gobert?
Jason Ants,
Who do you
go
think?
and I'll think of an answer.
I'm so confused right now. Say it again.
Same.
Who is the best player in the NBA? So Mike said if you're below, let's say a 5, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, he said Obi Toppin's a 5 in terms of being able to create. Mid-tier. You got to be at least mid-tier to be in the closing lineup right now in the NBA. But guys like Rudy Gobert and Jarrett Allen, they can't. They're below a 5. Whatever.
Yeah.
I guess
Whatever,
it's irrelevant
yeah.
whether you're 1 through 4.
Either you can get your own shot or you can't.
Right.
It's
Some
really
guys are
not
better than
scary.
others, but can you do it ultimately? So I'm asking, who's the best player in the league that can't? Is it Rudy Gobert off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head.
I think Zubac.
Okay,
After further
Zubac.
review, Zubac.
So is Zubac? So if Zubac is the best player that can't create his own offense, is he a useless player? Like when it matters in the NBA playoffs?
But this is why it's so nuanced.
Yeah.
Because you can't totally ignore defense. You can't.
Right.
But offense is more important. Like, we talked about this before. It's easier to win in the NBA with elite scoring and average defense. You can't be at the bottom.
Right. Right. Sure.
But just average.
Sure.
But it's a lot harder to win in the playoffs with elite defense and very average offense.
Right.
Scoring matters.
Yeah.
And to that point, and when the Cavs first signed Jarrett to the first extension, when they first traded for him and they first signed him to this deal that's about to expire, I kind of along Mike's line of thinking, I thought that's a lot of money to play to a guy who may not be on the floor in the playoffs, because you can scheme guys like that off the floor in the playoffs. But they're still they still hold value, and there's still a valuable role for them. We can't just act like the first 82 games don't matter at all. They do. And you still have to play well enough to get there. And there's times where Jarrett Allen can help you depending on the matchup. There's times where Jarrett Allen can help you in a postseason series. Now, do you want him on the floor in the last 2 minutes of a one-possession game? You can have that argument. I'll hear that because, I think the Cavs are at their best with Evan at center and 4 shooters around him. But at the same time, he's the 84th highest paid player in the NBA. That sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound outrageous now.
Yeah.
And I think the Cavs had a little bit of foresight with that when they signed him to the deal of where salaries were headed. Now, when he jumps to $30 million in a year, you can have that conversation. Is he worth that much? But at $20 million, I think he has grown into where the salaries have gone. 84th highest paid player in the league to me doesn't sound outrageous.
So I'm going to disagree with you on one thing you said there. I don't think, I think it's proven once again that the regular season does not matter at all. Because you said you have to get there. In Major League Baseball, in the NFL, it's hard to get there because not that many teams make it. In the NBA, it's so oversaturated that there is not any team that can't make it into the dance is not good enough to win anyway.
Okay, but here, if the Pacers win, if they rally and win,
right,
they will be the first team in 30 years to win with 50 regular season wins or fewer. Think about that.
Okay.
So it's not just anyone who gets in can win.
But
it's not. And if the Thunder win, Mike, give me the stat. If the Thunder win, they will be the
13th
I feel like
team.
Billy Bean and Moneyball. When I point to you, talk.
That was good. That's true.
They'd be the 13th team in the history of the league to win 64 or more regular season games with an average margin of victory of 9 points or better. There's only been 16 teams that have ever done it. The Cavs were one of those teams this year and did not win the finals.
Okay, I think...
But 13 of 16 tells you that it matters.
The 30 years is... I'm throwing that away, and here's why. You tell me if you agree or disagree. In the last 10 years, I don't know when exactly we went over this line.
Yeah.
But some point in the last 10 years, maybe it's only in the last 3 or 4 years.
It is. I know. If you're
the
going
game
where
has drastically changed.
It's the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay, so it's the last 3 or 4 years. I think what happened before that is like it's a different sport almost.
But why didn't a team with 49, 50, 51 wins win it in the last 3 or 4 years then?
No, I can't answer that. It's a good point. That's a good argument. I'm just curious to see, as we go forward the next 10 years, if we will start to see more teams that that are not necessarily the 1 seed more often win.
Yeah, I think that 10 years from now, we may look back on the start of this era, of this parity era. But even still, and I would say, I don't know what the number is. I feel like really since Denver is when things started to change a little bit. But even Denver had a great year that year. How many games did Denver win the year they won
I don't
the
know, but we are 1 game away from the team that finished with 68 regular season wins winning the championship.
Exactly. So you can't say the regular season doesn't matter because it does. Now, I do think you can go over the top with that. And, I think the Cavs have championed their regular season wins a little bit too much at times. I totally agree with that. But we can't totally dismiss it and throw it out and say it doesn't matter when teams with 50 or fewer wins haven't won a championship in 30 years and the team that had 68 wins is about to win it again if they win 1 more game. And we're going to see yet again that history shows teams that dominant almost always win. And it's just unfortunate the Cavs are now in the conversation of that team that didn't. And that's again, they had an atrocious 2 weeks at the worst possible time. But I almost think I'm almost come back the other way now to where it shows you how good this team really was, because what they accomplished this year almost never happens. And the teams that do it almost always win the championship. They're just the anomaly. They're on the wrong side of the anomaly.
It sucks, though, because the Cavs, the last 2 years have been great in the regular season. And now, next year I'm not going to care about the regular season.
Everybody's going to feel that way. Everybody's going to feel that way.
And it was the same way when LeBron was
and I can't
here.
fault you for that. Honestly, I don't fault you for that.
But, the stats back it up that it does matter.
Yeah, it does. It truly does. Like,
I need to go into coma during the regular season.
That's something we're missing in this whole thing.
But that's why this is such a nuanced conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have all the information yet, because this is this brave new world of the NBA.
Yeah.
And there's just not a lot of data. When I talk to people in the league, they sort of shrug their shoulders. We talked about this before. 4 quarters doesn't equal $1. And NBA has been such a star-driven league, you would rather have a dollar player than 4 quarter players, because the dollar player is going to win every time. And I've asked around, is that still true? And to this point, the answer is, I don't know. We'll find out. We're not far enough down the line. And Mike and I sort of did the show yesterday that we recorded that'll air tomorrow, was sort of on that about like depth. And I just don't think it's so black and white of an issue of yes or no of an issue of a $20 million player can't help you. If he can't shoot, he can't win a championship. Because I'll go the other way. And again, old era. But, I used this example yesterday. Channing Frye absolutely cooked the Raptors in the conference finals. In 2016, they were winning the championship. He was unplayable against Golden State,
right?
Because they put him in pick and rolls and he couldn't guard. But it depends. It's more matchup dependent, I think, than just a blatant. If you can't score, if you can't get your own shot, you're not going to help. Because Kevin Love, who was one of the big three, who absolutely, regardless of what you say, was vital to that team, they had to bring him off the bench against the Warriors.
I didn't say he wasn't vital.
You've tried to diminish his role before on that champion. You said they could win a championship without him. You have.
I think they could.
But he was vital. So was he vital or was he not?
I think he was vital that year, yes.
Okay. So, but the larger point is, for as important as he was to that team, they brought him off the bench in the finals because it was so matchup dependent. It's more, and you could say we're going to make teams adjust to us and we're going to make them play our style. That's all well and good, but that's not always true. A lot of times you do have to react to the way that teams are playing you, especially in the NBA.
What's interesting, though, is, you point to Oklahoma City, and it's fair, as, look, the regular season mattered. But correct me if I'm wrong, the second best team in the league, Cavs, lost in the second round.
Yep.
The third best team in the NBA, the Celtics, lost in the second round.
Yep.
The fourth best team in the league, I believe, was the Rockets.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Is that correct, Mike?
Technically, yes, by slight percentage points.
They lost in the second round. Oh, the first round. Who was the fifth best team?
Knicks.
Okay, so the other 3 teams.
And then the Pacers were tied for 6th.
So the next 3 best teams in the league won a combined 2 playoff series against nobody.
And the Cavs had a lot of injuries, and the Celtics lost Tatum. They probably would have. They were on the.
Well,
verge
I don't want to hear about
series.
injuries because maybe if Halliburton wasn't hurt, the Pacers would have won this series.
Maybe.
I mean, we'll never know.
You might be, but that's why injuries are the great equalizer in all of this stuff. Boston probably was trending toward losing that series even before Tatum went down. But you do have to point out they lost their best player. And the Cavs were fighting injuries, and whether you want to use that as an excuse or not, that's the reality of the situation. But ultimately, if the team that won 68 games and made history with their margin of victory wins the championship, you can look at it and say, that's now 13 of 16 times this has happened, the best team won. I think that's pretty significant. It's never going to be 100%. There's always going to be exceptions to every rule that you have one way or the other. But that's really, really telling to me.
All right, fair enough.